There's an old saying that many are probably familiar with. It says, life is short, better enjoy it while you can. There's another saying that most of you probably are unfamiliar with. It says, eternity is long, better prepare while you can. Then there's another saying which I've added. It says, time is short and many are unprepared. We need to be about our Father's business. Many of us have family and friends who are not yet prepared for eternity. Many have not yet made a personal commitment to Jesus, and many more think they are ready for heaven because they were baptized or christened as an infant. They don't realize that going to heaven requires a personal relationship with Jesus. These teachings are to serve us to win our lost family and friends to Jesus before time runs out. Welcome to Making Revelation Simple. This is a commentary on the book of Revelation, which is based on the Three Woes series of books. In this session, we will be covering Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 through 2. John says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon its horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority." This beast in chapter 13 is not the same beast from chapter 12. Both beasts have 7 heads and 10 horns, but this beast has 10 crowns on its 10 horns, while the chapter 7 beast has 7 crowns on its 7 heads. This beast is rising up out of the sea, while the chapter 12 beast, or dragon, was in heaven. As we continue on to verse 2, we see that this beast gets its power, its seat, and its authority from the chapter 12 beast, who is the red dragon, or Satan. So they are definitely 2 distinct beasts. Here in chapter 13, John describes the beast he saw rise up out of the sea. The word waters, or sea in this case, is frequently synonymous with people. We also know from our study of Revelation chapter 17 that the 7 heads of this beast represent 7 mountains, or 7 continents, as I believe them to be. Chapter 17 also tells us that the 10 horns are 10 kings. So let's look at that. Revelation chapter 17, verses 7, 9, and 12. It says, "The angel said unto me, me being John, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and the 10 horns." Here it's referring back to the beast of chapter 13. "And here is a mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast." Many have assumed that this new world order will be the European Union, but John tells us that these kings have received no kingdom yet and have no power until the beast gives them their power. Therefore, when we look at this and we see where these beasts have received no kingdom and no power yet, but will have it for only 1 hour with the beast, this certainly seems to immediately disqualify the European Union as being what these 10 kings are. People keep expecting the European Union to be reduced from the 20-some or 30-some nations that make it up right now to 10 someday. That's unlikely to happen. And because they currently have power and authority and a kingdom, doesn't allow them to fit with what the word is saying here. Going back to Revelation chapter 13, verse 2, John describes the beast as being like a leopard with feet of a bear and the mouth of a lion. This is a composite of 3 beasts that we see back in Daniel chapter 7, verses 1 through 6. And as we look at verse 7, we find that Daniel is describing John's beast of chapter 13. So Daniel chapter 7, verses 3 through 7 says, "And the 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast. This is John's chapter 13 beast now that's being described. Dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So there is Daniel describing the chapter 13 beast that is more elaborately portrayed in chapter 17 of Revelation. So let's take a visual look at these 2 beasts, the one from chapter 12 and the one from chapter 13 of Revelation. The chapter 12 beast was the great red dragon, who John described as being and defined to be Satan, the devil. And it's depicted here on the left-hand side of the screen. And you see it has heads and it has horns, but the crowns of this dragon are upon the heads. And then on the right-hand side, we see the Antichrist, the beast of chapter 13. And here it is a compilation of a leopard and lion and teeth and paws like a bear. And we see it has 7 heads, but it has 10 horns, and its crowns are on the horns. So that's just a visual to help us understand that John is defining 2 different beasts here and who they are and who they represent. One is Satan, the other is the Antichrist. Returning to Revelation chapter 13, verses 3 through 5, John says, I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death. Now, this is not one of the heads, but this is one of the 10 horns that are now individuals. And it says, his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months, which is 3.5 years. So in verse 3, we see where one of the beast's heads received, as it were, a deadly wound. It probably wasn't really deadly, but it certainly looked like it. So make a point of that the wound only seemed to be deadly. And don't get confused here. This wounded head, again, is not one of the 7 heads that represented the 7 continents. This head is one of the 10 kings of state making up the 10-nation alliance, which were allegorically pictured as 10 horns with 10 crowns. And we saw this both in chapter 13, and it was explained what they were in chapter 17 of Revelation. This is also the point where this allegorical beast transforms from being a 10-nation alliance with 10 kings or horns to a 10-nation alliance with 7 kings or horns. This is explained once again back in Daniel at chapter 7, verses 7 and 8, where we see 3 of the horns being plucked up. After the plucking of these 3 horns, we're left with a 10-nation alliance, which is now under the control of a single horn with 6 others. We got the single horns, the world leader, human world leader, and we got the 6 others that are associated with him. So following what looks like the death of the national leader and what appears to be his resurrection, the multi-nation alliance that was originally led by 10 kings becomes the kingdom of the Antichrist, which is led and ruled by the Antichrist, with the other 6 horns just assisting him and being subservient to him. So let's read that back in Daniel, verses 7 through 8. Daniel says, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were the eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. So this is where the Antichrist is rising to power. We aren't told how this simulated resurrection will come to be, but it appears as though a demonic being will likely enter the seemingly dead body of a national leader, creating what looks like a supernatural recovery that tries to mimic the resurrection of Jesus. In Revelation chapter 11, verse 7, we are told that the beast from the bottomless pit was the one who killed the two witnesses. That is the same angel we are told, or we were introduced to in chapter 9, the angel named Apollyon, who was the king over the scorpion locust. This same beast from the bottomless pit is identified as the Antichrist in Revelation chapter 17, verse 8. So let's read Revelation 17, 8. It says, "The beast that thou sawest, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is." Notice that phrase, the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. Remember when we first started our study in Revelation chapter 1, verse 18 is talking about, "I am he that liveth." That's Jesus speaking. He says, "I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen, and have the kings of death and hell." Here's Jesus' phrase saying, "I liveth and was dead, and behold, I'm alive." Notice how the beast is doing his best to imitate God once again, where we're told that the beast was and is not, and yet is. Continuing on with Revelation, in our look at chapter 13, verses 3 through 5, we need to look and notice here where it says, "John said, I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed." This is talking about the beast with the 7 heads, or really those are the horns that we're representing there, where the 10 horns were reduced to 7, where the Antichrist plucked up the 3, and now we see one of the heads reduced. And this is going from being the multi-nation alliance to all of a sudden, and they worship the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worship the beast, saying, "Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" Singular, not them. "And there was given unto him," the Antichrist, "a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue for 42 months. So here in this verse 3 through 5, we see this beast with the 7 heads and the 10 horns, who are the individuals, being reduced to 7 horns, and then being transformed from a multi-nation alliance to being the Antichrist controlling and leading this multi-nation alliance as one individual now, and as one kingdom, the new world order. So notice how the pronouns have shifted from being referring to many to now referring to just the one, the Antichrist. I believe what will happen here is the national leader will suffer a head wound, leaving him comatose, and Apollyon, the demonic angel from chapter 9, will enter the seemingly dead body, simulating the resurrection of the national leader. This could explain Revelation chapter 17, verses 10 through 11, where we are told that the beast was and is not, because he is now one of the 7 national leaders, even though he is really the 8th national leaders. Furthermore, this explains these 2 verses where the national leader is the head of the alliance for a short space of time, but replaced by the beast, Apollyon, who is the 8th leader, though he is actually the 7th in appearance to the rest of the world. Again, looking at Revelation chapter 17, verse 11, it says, "And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition." Revelation chapter 13, verses 6 through 10. "And he opened his mouth in blaspheming against God," that's the Antichrist, "to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwelt in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints This is not the raptured church. This is Israel. The Jewish people are now the saints that God's trying to deliver. And to them and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. The Antichrist makes war against the saints of Israel, the Jewish people, and we are told that he overcomes them and gains power over most of the world. We are told that all people upon the earth at this time who have not chosen to follow God will worship the beast. The scripture here implies that those who choose to follow God will be very few in number. Continuing with Revelation chapter 13, verses 6 through 10, let's really pick up with verse 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. That phrase is very, very similar to what we saw to each of the seven churches back in chapters 2 and 3. That's where Jesus said, he that hath an ear, let him hear. To the churches, he said, to those who have an ear, let them hear. He's assuming that the churches are going to hear. That's what it seems like here, that Christ is expecting his New Testament churches would at least listen to the message that they were being given. But here in verse 9, John seems to imply that mankind may be so ungodly, so self-centered, and so hard-hearted that mankind no longer even has an ear to be able to hear God's message. Revelation chapter 13, verse 9 and 10. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. What is God's message here? John appears to be telling the world that whatever actions they take attempting to resist the cruel rule of the Antichrist will be turned back upon them by the Antichrist. Overall, the warning appears to suggest the adoption of a passive acceptance of what is happening. Be patient and trust in your faith. Be like Daniel in the lion's den. Be like the three Hebrew children in the fiery furnace. John is telling us that the only way for most people to escape this terrible time of tribulation is to be beheaded. Remember, again, once the rapture took place back in chapter 6, the time and the age of grace is over. Before the rapture, man can simply ask God to forgive him of his sins and invite him in to change his life and to make him a new creature, and God will do it. But here, following the rapture of the church, the only way to redeem one's eternal being and not go to hell, but instead to go to heaven, is to refuse to worship refuse to worship the beast and refuse to follow him. And those who refuse to do that are going to suffer beheadings. So that is the only way. Revelation chapter 13, verses 11 through 12. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exercises all the power of the first beasts before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. At verse 11, John introduces us to yet another beast. Notice that this beast arose from the earth, while the first beast, the one from chapter 13 that we first looked at earlier, arose from the sea. To arise from the sea depicts a more tumultuous beginning, one marked by a violent or overwhelming upheaval. To arise from the earth depicts a more civilized and orderly consolidation of power that would be acceptable to society in general. The description of this beast is dripping with deception. Its appearance is that of a gentle and passive lamb having two horns, but its actions and words are like those of the dragon, Satan himself. Revelation chapter 13, verses 13 through 15. It says, and he doeth, he being the Antichrist, or I'm sorry, not the Antichrist, he being this two-horned beast, which is the false prophet, doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwelleth on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword, and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. As we continue reading, we're told that this second beast will deceive mankind's by means of great miracles and wonders. This beast will make fire come down from heaven. And what does that remind us of? The two witnesses called down fire to destroy their enemies. And we now see this beast calling down fire in the presence of the Antichrist, the one who killed the two witnesses. This beast seems to garner a stamp of great approval by calling down fire in the presence of the one who overcame and killed the two witnesses. Who is this beast with the two little horns that calls down fire from heaven? We know from Revelation chapter 16, verse 13, that this beast is called the false prophet. This title clearly identifies this two-horned beast as being part of the world's religious establishment. Continuing on, looking at verse 13 through 15 of chapter 13, it says, he, the false prophet, doeth great wonders, and deceiveth them on the earth, to make an image to the beast which had the deadly wound by a sword, and did live. And the false prophet had power to give life unto the image of the beast, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. As we read here in verses 14 and 15, we see where the false prophet urges mankind to make an image of the beast, the Antichrist, who suffered the deadly wound and was seemingly healed. The false prophet does not make the image of the beast, but he does seem to give life to the image so that it speaks. This life-giving act most likely will take the form of artificial intelligence. The false prophet then forces all mankind to worship the image that they made. Continuing on here in verses 15 and 16, we're told that he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. The false prophet casts a very wide net, whether you're a small individual or a great individual, whether you're wealthy or whether you're poor, whether you're free or whether you're a slave. There are no exemptions, there are no exceptions. Everyone is going to be forced to worship this image of the beast or die. We learn later at Revelation chapter 20, verse 4, that all who refuse to worship the image of this beast are beheaded. Remember again, following the rapture of the church, the age of grace is over. The only way to save one's eternal soul or spirit is to be beheaded. If you accept the beheading, you'll go to heaven and be with Christ. But if you worship the beast and accept the mark, you're going to commit yourself to a devil's hell forever. So once an individual forfeits his eternal soul by worshiping the image of the beast, he will then be allowed to receive a mark indicating his or her surrender and yielding to pure evil. But he's lost his soul. He's lost his ability to ever go to heaven once that happens. Continuing on to verses 15 and 16 and 17, where again, he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So we really have three things that you can accept. You can accept the mark, you can accept the name, or you can accept the number of his name. So in return for your capitulation, each individual will be given the right to receive one of these three symbols in either their right hand or their forehead. The symbol will be either the mark of the beast, the name of the beast, which is Apollyon in Greek, or the number of his name. Once individuals have fully succumbed to the demonic pressure and received their mark, they will be granted the earthly benefit of being able to buy and sell in order to feed themselves and possibly their immediate family. So Revelation chapter 13, verse 18 says, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666." This last verse of chapter 13 has puzzled mankind for centuries. It tells us that the number of the beast is 666. We know the specific number, however, we don't know how that number is associated with mankind. Some have used a system called gematria, whereby a number value is assigned to a letter, somewhat like Latin Roman numerals. So we see the I is 1, the V is 5, the X is 10, L is 50, and so on. Greek and Hebrew both use similar methods, where each letter of their alphabet represents a number. Since John was a Hebrew and was writing in Greek, gematria could be a possible solution. Many modern scholars have tried to associate the number of an identification card system used by some country or nation as much like the American Social Security card number. But many national identification numbering systems were not designed to handle a number large enough to equal the number of individuals in the world. Will the mark of the beast be a potential future world ID number, a telephone number, or the number associated with one's residential address where the street, city, and state and country make it unique? We don't know, but all are potential candidates. This concludes our commentary on Revelation chapter 13. Continue on to our next video to watch the commentary on Revelation chapter 14. Thank you for watching.